Another guy that's out there that you have at number 3 on your list
number
of
4
top quarterbacks.
right.
Is it 4? Who's he behind? What are your first 3?
Well, I got
that's right,
Zach
Jones,
Wilson, Lawrence,
that's
Jones,
right.
and then Mond.
And Jones.
Right.
That's right. Number 4. I misspoke. They know who we mean. Number 4, still a surprise because it's ahead of Fields and Lance.
Yeah.
Kellen Mond. He had his pro day workout at Texas A&M on Tuesday. Here's Mond after his workout.
Personally, I don't mind being underrated because at the end of the day, especially when you get to the league, you're always going to have to depend on yourself and also the people around you to succeed. A lot of guys, and with me, I've been through a lot of adversity before the season. If somebody went to the media and told you, Kellen Mond, loses his number 1 receiver from the year before and loses, his 3 other top receivers at the time, would he have his best season, go 9-1, and pretty much have his best season? I'm pretty sure 100% of people would have told me no. I don't mind being underrated because, the chips are going to fall, where everything and where it may. And, so I just try to operate, be even kill, and, everything will happen at the best time for me.
He specifically mentioned yesterday talking with the Steelers and the Bears. Of course, all teams can talk to as many of the candidates as they want, up to, I think it's 5 one-hour sessions on Zoom. So that doesn't have the significance as a visit would have, but clearly the Steelers and the Bears thinking about 2022 quarterback position. They're one of the teams that, they know who they have this year. They don't know who they're going to have next year. And Mond in Chicago or Pittsburgh would be learning behind someone else and sitting for a year. But, Chris, where do you think his realistic ceiling is? Despite what you think of him, and you would have him maybe even as high as a top 10 pick, where do you really think he's going to end up? What's the highest he could hope for?
I think that the thing I look at more than anything would be, maybe he could be a guy that ends up getting drafted late in the first round with a team. Like I know Bruce Arians made a comment about maybe they would think about drafting a quarterback at 32, right? To me, that would be Kellen Mond. That would be that guy right there. And really the Bears, Steelers, I would think there's a lot of thoughts there of, second round pick 2, but I think ultimately, it's going to be the second round is what it sounds like. Yeah, I don't agree with that. I don't. I think this guy's got big time talent, and I think he's just got big time talent in the pocket to make all the throws, quick release, doesn't need space around him, can make unreal throws when the pocket's collapsing, all of those type of things. But, I think ultimately NFL teams are going to take this guy anywhere between, let's say, 25 and 45, Mike. I think that's about the general range where Kellen Mond will go in the draft.
And Bruce Arians did mention the possibility of taking a quarterback at number 32. Another possibility when you're holding that last spot in round 1 is to trade out with a team who's in round 2, who didn't get a quarterback in round 1, wants to swoop back in. That's a valuable spot. We've seen that happen with Teddy Bridgewater. It happened with Lamar Jackson, trading back to 32, getting the 5-year contract with the quarterback, and you avoid the Dak Prescott 4-year conundrum. And who knows what you can pick up by way of an extra draft pick or 2 by sliding out of that spot and going into round 2.
That's right. You think that the Bucs at 32 with the Kellen Mond, okay, maybe that could be a possibility. I think that could be a great situation for Mond to be there for a year, learn from a Brady and everything else, and then take over if Brady does retire. I also look at the Jacksonville Jaguars. Not the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Atlanta Falcons sitting there at number 36 in the second round. If they decided maybe they don't go Trey Lance at 4, which a lot of people have them rumored to do, Kellen Mond to me, I think would be a guy that would fancy their way of play. Arthur Smith, what he wants to do. Here's Kellen Mond. He's similar to Ryan Tannehill in the way he just played in the Tennessee Titans offense that I've gotten this job for what I did there. That to me is another thought that has crossed my mind too, that Atlanta at the top of the second, maybe they even traded up to the late first, something around that area would make sense. And I think that's ultimately where I see Kellen Mond kind of falling to.
And you can really pick up, if you're the Bucs, you can really pick up some future assets and maybe some present assets by sliding back if the opportunity comes to you. It's a valuable, valuable pick to have that 32nd spot. If there is a quarterback still lingering who has slid past all the others and is there on the board, he could end up being number 6, though, of the first-round quarterbacks, assuming all the others end up going in round 1. It's going to be a fun draft from the standpoint of quarterbacks.
It is.
As I think what's happening is, one of my pet peeves about the draft is on draft night, no one ever is going to point out, you know what, there's a pretty good chance this guy's a bust. Every pick, every first-round pick, there's a pretty good chance he's never going to be very good. But in recent years, the success rate for quarterbacks, Chris, has gone up. The offenses are adapting to what the guys did in college that caused the teams to fall in love with them in the first place. So the idea of possibly 6 first-round quarterbacks and it not being like 83, where for every Dan Marino, there's a Tony Eason. For every Jim Kelly, there's a Todd Blackledge. You could get 6 first-rounders, and they could all end up being pretty damn good quarterbacks.
Definitely. Well, and there's more flexibility with the way these guys play. So there's more flexibility, too, within these new teams to find ways that they can still be successful with these guys. And, you know, like we've talked about so many times, too, Mike, teams have just realized, wait, if I'm going to draft this guy here, my name is attached to this. Like, I need to make this work. So the smart ones have done a great job and invested in supporting that top 10 quarterback or whatever it may be. You know, so yes, I mean, you're right. There's not a lot of busts that you think about over the last few years. I mean, you know, right now, I mean, Josh Rosen, I guess, kind of fits that mold. You know, we have like the Christian Ponders and Dwayne Haskins so far to this point. Jake Locker from the Titans. I know I'm missing some other ones.
2011. I think the worm turned at some point in the last decade where the success rate went up. 2011 was a disaster. It was Jake Locker at 8, Blaine Gabbert at 10. Both AFC South teams taking those guys when J.J. Watt was still on the board, who those AFC South teams had to deal with for the next decade, and then Christian Ponder at 12. That was the year without free agency before the draft. That was the year where teams got extra desperate in round 1, and there was that 8, 10, 12 bust. But at some point since then, it shifted. At some point since then, teams realized if we're going to take this guy, we got to do everything in our power to make this guy successful. And we've seen the rate of success go up. Some point between 2011 and 2017-ish. I'd have to go back at every draft class and look. But I feel like the success rate has gotten higher in recent years. And not that they're going to go 6 for 6 this year if there are 6 first-round quarterbacks, but it just feels like you're not – and it's. I feel like teams are drafting fewer projects in round 1.
I agree.
If you can't get a quarterback who can come in and play right away this year, we'll wait till next year and we'll get a quarterback who can come in and play then, because you know a lot of these teams with quarterback needs already have veterans who can play. Yeah. So I think that's one of the reasons as well. You don't have as much of a roll of the dice at quarterback as you used to have.
No, definitely not. The quarterbacks too, I think, are more well schooled and ready to play in the NFL than ever before. But listen, at the end of the day, that's why I got Lance and Fields at 5 and 6. Because I do think there's issues there. To me, it's not a slam dunk. There is, as great as some of their high-end talent is, there is a little bit of a bust factor for me with those guys. And that's why I got them there, because there's some issues with their throwing and things like that I just don't think are as top-notch or as consistent as the top four guys I got on my board at least.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.